Hey, 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 welcome back to another episode. I hope you're having an amazing day. We are going to talk more about parenting and navigating the waters. Um, on Saturday, I talked about how I had gone through different life experiences in my parenting journey, and how I was a teen mom, and how, I started with had my first baby when I was 14 and a half. I got pregnant in eighth grade and had her my freshman year of high school when I was 15. I turned 50, got pregnant in January, turned 15 in June, had her in October. Her birthday will be this coming Sunday. And so she's going to be 30. It is so crazy to see who I am and where life has taken me since that experience. So many things happened, during that part of my life, and I had to learn to grow up really fast. And I watched a lot of teen moms struggle with that because they struggled with identity in being a teenager and also being a parent and having some responsibilities that were grown up responsibilities. And I remember moving out at 15. Um, I remember my mom and dad having to write a letter so that I could move out before emancipation. And they just wanted what was best for me. And I think they really just struggled trying to figure out what that was. And they just did their best. And I look back now and I'm grateful for their support. I would have fought them. So I'm grateful that they just let me figure it out. Every decision that was made was my decision. I will say that. Wasn't always have been pretty stubborn. And once my mind is made up, my mind is pretty made up. And that was something that I had to grow into understand about myself, but also how to overcome that kind of behavior because there are times when it's good for you and there are times when it hinders you. And I look at my life, and if I would have done a few things differently, I would have been a better parent, a better spouse, but they also wouldn't have led me to the person that I am today. And so for that, I'm grateful. um, Being a teen mom I was faced with a lot of judgment. I remember going into a fast food restaurant to get cheeseburgers and fries, what normal people do, and with my mom and dad and my daughter's dad and I, and my daughter was just a couple months old, so I was really, really new at that parenting thing, and I was just barely turning 15, and I was already embarrassed enough. Like I was so embarrassed that and felt so much shame and so much guilt already, um, that I was even more mortified when I could hear at least there's 30 people at least inside this restaurant. And I'll never forget it because it was the day I realized, my mom was a pretty awesome mom. I mean, I knew, but boy, did she show up. Um, they were calling me some really horrible names and whispering to each other at their tables. Like they weren't actually saying it to me or to our table, but everybody, I don't know how they didn't hear themselves or hear the other people talking about it. Like, but we could hear it all. Like we were for like closest to the front door exit, like even. And we could hear like everything that they were saying. And I was being called a whore, and I was being called some horrible, horrible names. And it just, I had experienced some things like that being bullied, but these were adults. Like these were like old people, like adults. Like like people that I looked up to, like people that I respected. And they were so mean and so hurtful. And I had a blanket completely covering myself and my daughter while I was nursing her because she was hungry and my mom told me to feed her. And they made a big deal out of it. And this was in, 1994, if it gives you some clarity. And so it was just hard. I'm not going to lie. It was hard. It was embarrassing. Like, I don't even know how to explain, but it's not an experience I wish on anyone. And the amount of things I had to experience as a teen mom shortly after we moved out and into town, because my parents had, 5 acres out in the country in Bangor, California, in Northern California. And they were out in the middle of nowhere. It was like a good 30-minute drive to get into town and all these windy roads and cliffs and just, it was so crazy. And I had to learn how to drive it up there, And so like all of those experiences, but one of the most profound was we moved into Oroville, California, and that's just, in town. It was a little town at the time. It's grown so much now. And we moved into town, and Megan, she was born in October and 94. And then we moved into town January. And shortly after moving into town, we weren't even in our apartment for maybe a couple weeks, I would say. And our whole entire town flooded. And we were on the second floor. And Megan's dad was a volunteer fireman. So he was started helping them and getting like going out and helping them, right? Well, the morning of the flood, um, Megan and I woke up with chickenpox. And so, well, we had chickenpox from head to toe, and it was my third time getting chickenpox in my lifetime. And so, um, we got chickenpox together. That was interesting. And we ended up getting quarantined into our upstairs apartment. And it was so crazy because for 2 weeks we were flooded out, and the bottom unit, the water was, 10 or 11 feet high. It was just not more than halfway above the bottom unit, but not enough to where we still had electricity, we still had sewer and water and all the things. I never lost any power or anything. The craziest, bizarrest thing. And I remember them boating us in medicine, like calamine lotions and medicines, and then food. And they would boat it to our front living room window. And and I was 15. And so I didn't think it was like a big deal then, but I look now and I'm like, holy cow, that's crazy. And I remember looking out the window, and people had tied their cars to the trees, and the cars were trying to float. And at one point, a car and a tree were floating down because the tree just gave way because the roots got so wet. And so that actually happened, I think, a few times. But craziest, we were under so much water, um, like enough to where they were riding boats in easily, and they went up to the second story, like literally. And we never like Megan and I stayed safe the whole time. Praise the Lord, right? And then a week went by, it was a good 10 days had gone by, and we had run out of clothes. And I called the manager's office, and she was up on a hill with the laundry room. They were all up on a hill, so they didn't flood out. Just the lower units that were down in that dip did, which we were part of that. And she said that where I was at, there was still like chest deep water, but once you got up the hill, it was all dry. And so I remember getting a rectangle laundry basket, and I just tied little baby Megan up. Think about it. She was born in October. So it was October, November, December. She was 3 months old. And I just remember tying her little tiny self with a towel to that basket in a knot. And I put in a container of laundry soap and I threw in mine and her clothes. And I put on a swimsuit and my shoes. And I literally put that basket up on my head. And I remember the women from the third world countries, they would put the basket on their head. So I was like, I'll just do it. I need laundry. And so I walked chest deep through that flood water, um, probably a good 50 feet of flood water. And then I got up that hill. And then when I got into the laundry place, I put on some clothes that I had brought and rinsed out my swimsuit. And then because I didn't want to, run around in my swimsuit, and I started a couple loads of laundry for us. Once that laundry was done, I put it all back, tied her back up, and um, put the swimsuit back on and went back through that mud and that muddy water to get back to our apartment. And then went in, took a shower, and washed the bathing suit. And we both got showers, and it was just amazing what you will do when you become a mother. And I will tell you, I would not have done that for myself. I would have just held out with dirty clothes, but I couldn't let her have dirty clothes. And so the things that you will do when you become a mother, um, I just, I look back now, and 15-year-old me was so brave. She was so courageous, and she would just do whatever it took. You know what I mean? She would just do whatever her little one needed. And it's so amazing to see, because I didn't know that about myself. And sometimes we look back at the things that we have done to honor our children, and we don't realize it, that we were honoring them. That was me honoring her as her mother, to just be that person that she needed, because she was defenseless. She's just a little bitty baby. And so it just, it was so inspiring to be a testimony that, motherhood is full of ups and downs. And that is one thing that she has taught me, is we've always had our ups and downs, but I look back at all of the things that we've overcome together, and we basically grew up together. And it wasn't, I would say it was a lot of hardness, like a lot of hard stuff. But I also realized that there were some moments that were really awesome and so smooth and simple. And she made me think for a long time that a lot of the moms were just like, something was wrong with them, because like my child was like, everything was cool, like so perfect and smooth and like by the book, that I'd read all those books in school and studying to be a teacher and stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, she's like perfect by the book, and and it was so crazy, because I truly did question like a lot of my friends who are teen moms and stuff, because their little ones were just little rambunctious little things, and they were just wild children, and they would not listen and cried more often. And they just had these temperaments that were so different than her. And she was literally by the book, every, psychology book. And it was just so crazy. And then I had my second child at 21. And when I had my second child at 21, complete opposite. They were literally polar opposites. And oh my goodness, you talk about polar opposites, because that was when I realized that parenthood was tough. That was when I realized that it wasn't a walk in the park, because one child is, I don't care what anybody says, you have enough time and patience for one. And the hardest part with having one child is sometimes entertaining them, but you teach them how to become self-entertained, right? You teach them how to make friends. You teach them how to get along, right? And with, yourself and others. You had a second child and you have two hands. And sometimes one child needs two hands. They need both of your hands and all of your attention. Whereas other times, they don't. And so for me, my first one was very independent. I'm very strong-headed, very independent. And my second one was very strong-willed and very independent, but they were in such a different way to where they demanded your attention. They seriously demanded it. And you would knew when they were in a room. Like, and I don't say that in a negative way. I say that in a, they demanded your attention. Like they were just this blonde, curly haired little cute thing, and you pissed them off. It was not a blonde haired, cute little curly thing. They were very, very, um, I always used to say that my girls, I prayed that they would, rule the world and not a gang. like like world peace. Like I hope that they do wonderful things, and hopefully it's not leading a gang line because they were so strong-willed. And I remember my mom would visit, and my second child, my mom would say something and they would tell my mom no. And my mom would say yes. And then my second child would put their hand up like a stop sign, like, and say no. And my mom would put her hand back, yes. And sometimes this no, yes dominance thing would go on for like 30 minutes. But my mom would not back down for nothing. And 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 now they're 23 and my mom's 81, and they laugh about it still today because my mom will bring it up a lot because she thinks because she knew that the second that she let them have that no, that the whole world was over. There was no stopping them. And so, um, but they really did learn, like they were really independent for a lot of things, you know what I mean? And they were my quiet one. As parenting, and it was so different having two. It was still very much doable, you know what I mean? But then number three baby came, and number three baby came, and now you are outnumbered. Now you are outnumbered. You only have two hands. And it's, and you just, my kids were spaced out even. Um, they were, the first two are 6 years and a week apart. And we have two October birthdays this month, coming month. Um, and then my second and third are 3 years, 8 months apart. They're my closest gap. And I swear they really wanted to take each other out. Like they were just not. It was funny because my second one had asked for a baby brother and asked for a baby brother and asked for a baby brother. Like I can't even count how many times they had asked for a baby brother. And I had a couple of miscarriages. And so we were, we were actually trying for baby number three, and had a couple of miscarriages, and really rocky times. And got pregnant with my third and my first son. And it it was funny because he was the one that we planned out of all of them, and he was more rambunctious than all of them put together. Oh man. Number three, and a boy, he literally peed on me every day for the first month of his time here. Right after being born. He would roll over to pee on somebody. Like he was just so little ornery from the get-go, and was so much fun though. Was so much fun having him. And he learned to walk a little earlier than everybody. He literally he crawled faster. He could climb on anything and everything. I had to get that kid down out of cupboards. I don't know how many times. He climbed. He did so many crazy things as a little man. I had to watch him like crazy. He literally was 5 years old, and it was during a family barbecue at the neighbors. And I was actually recently divorced from his dad, or separated, going through divorce. And he decided that he was going to climb a 50, 60-foot pine tree. And he made it about 5 feet from the top. And he yelled, "Mom, I'm scared." And I was like, "Oh my God, where are you?" Because they were literally just right in front of me skateboarding. And then all of a sudden he took a break, and then he's in this tree. He said, "I'm in the big tree. I'm going to dial 911 and call the fire department. Like, it's going to be a big effing deal." And the neighbor guy, who was an avid climber, thankfully, reassured me that he would go up and go get him and bring him down. And I had trust in him. And so I said, "Okay, I've got 911 on speed dial, like, not messing around." And so he climbs up the tree, and he's talking to Logan as he's walking up there with him. And he tells him, "I want to touch the top." And my friend says, "Okay, but you can't tell your mom." And so he climbs him the rest of the way up to touch the top of this pine tree. And he gets down, and he's climbing down with him, and he gets about halfway, and he said, "Mom, he let me touch the top of the tree." That's nice. Trying not to lose my shit. And he comes down, and he's like, "Can we do that again?" No. So then we had to talk to him about safety and all the things. And oh my, oh my, oh my. And so he was quite the animated one. He was quite the adventurous one. Zero fear, zero, zero fear. And just literally put me through so many moments where I had to hold my breath. I remember even at 6 months old, he climbed out of his crib. He literally climbed out of his crib. And I opened the door, and I watched him climb out of his crib, and it was too late for me to stop him. He would have fallen if I would have said something. So I was holding my breath, going, "Oh my gosh, please don't fall." And he climbed out and sat on his butt and was fine. I dismantled that crib immediately and put him in a toddler bed at 6 months old, because he was a climber. And so, like, he carried it on with him. And now he's 20, and we walk by that tree. And when he was like 15, he walked by that tree with me, and he goes, "Mom, I can't believe I climbed that to the top." And he's not as daring as he was, I will say, these days. A lot more, um, he's a lot more reserved when it comes to that, and he is more mindful. That's the word I'm looking for. He's more mindful. But it was just an amazing thing to watch him grow up. He went through some really hard stuff, right after that tree incident. When he was 7, almost 8, he was attacked by a family dog by accident, and it got him in the face. And so he had to undergo plastic surgery and a lot of treatment, and it did a lot to him. But as his mom, being able to take care of him and do all the things that I needed to do for him, it was just such a blessing to be able to be there. And I think that's what we can look at these things as, "Man, this stuff is just, I can't believe I got to do this." But imagine when they're older, and those moments and opportunities aren't there anymore, the same way. And so it just really made me see, no matter what is going on, we can navigate it. Like, that's part of parenting, and part of us being adults and us growing up and maturing, is no matter what happens, we can navigate it. And you also have other people who've gone through some stuff that you can even ask, "Have you ever experienced something like this?" I think that was the thing that helped me the most, was understanding that I wasn't alone in my parenting, and that I was not the only person going through domestic violence. I was not the only person going through the child getting hurt. I was not the only person that experienced loss. And so just a lot of different areas, a lot of divorce, I'm not the only person that's experienced divorce. I didn't realize something until this morning. I was on my Bible study this morning and I realized that I'd been carrying around a lot of shame for my divorces. And we're going to touch on that on another podcast, but it dawned on me um, the reasons for those divorces. It actually states in the Bible that those are reasons that you can divorce, and um, and I didn't um, and I didn't know, and I think it's that knowing. Um, and so I think it's just the more you study, the more you study yourself, the more you study what you've gone through, um, and you can find peace. It's the letting go. I was holding on to the crap that I did not need to hold on to. And I think that's really what I got from it was, why are you holding on to these things? And and then it's that reminder that divorce is better than a broken family, so broken that it's causing permanent life damages to people, both physical, mental, emotionally, all the things. Um, and growth is part of learning when you got to say, I don't want to live like this anymore, and that comes with parenting. If you really are allowing your kids to like instill in you those things that um are right and wrong, because like, let's face it, I think that's really what it is. We know right from wrong, but sometimes we struggle choosing right from wrong because it would mean that we'd have to make choices that like our fleshy self just doesn't want to make, but our spiritual self knows that we need to make it. And I think that is so hard, but it's part of giving yourself more and giving more of yourself and letting go of things that no longer are yours to keep. And I think that's what I learned the most this morning was I chose better for my children and I. And I may not have got it right the second time, but I got it right the third time. And I'm so grateful. And God knew I would be with Sean when I was in second grade. So to see that now, like, I just was doing what I wanted to do and not what I was supposed to do. I had a plan, and I didn't even know what that plan was. Sometimes we don't know because we're not listening, we're not being quiet enough. And I think that as a parent, there's so much chaos going on around us. There's so much stuff going on around us that we're not just giving ourselves the time to just sit and like really listen. And so we do these things sometimes out of desperation or out of fear or lack. But if we were actually being intuitive, parents and listening and really paying attention a little more, we would know, and it would be a knowing of what it is that our family needs. And that's what I am learning. And we're going to talk more about that. I know I'm just kind of touching on things today, but we are going to dive a little bit more into different ways that you can grow in your parenting in today's world. Like, let's be honest, it's a little different than when we were reading the child books, back in the 90s or the 80s or even the 70s and 60s. Like, I've read some books on parenting and some different styles. And um, there's a lot of things that are very similar, yes, but there's a lot of differences in today. I feel like social media really plays a big role in our parenting today, or it can. And I feel like also a lot of self-image plays a big role in who we are. And And our past, if we have not worked on letting stuff go and healing things, and we still have trauma and we have things that are still triggering to us, those are going to play a role in our parenting. If you suffer with anxiety, if you suffer with any kind of PTSD or depression, panic attacks, I had suffered with all of those things. I promise you, you can feel better. And so those are all things that as a parent, they hindered or impacted my parenting style and performance in some way, shape, or form. And so I want to talk a little bit more about that too. I also just want to talk about like our kids are, borrowed to us, I feel like, and we're giving them these little blessings and we're, designing and molding and shaping them. And if we don't have ourselves in a place where we feel peace or some sort of wholeness, it's going to be really hard to really give them the best we have to offer. And we all have that peace and wholeness inside of us. And so I can't wait to dive in and just help you untap that, tap into that and kind of unlock it and start using it for your superpower. I cannot wait for more episodes. I will talk to you guys soon. I hope you have an amazing day.